$150 million in gold. That's what one man tried to corner on September 24, 1869. He bribed the president's brother-in-law. He crashed the entire U.S. economy in a single afternoon. And when the government finally stopped him, he'd already sold. Wall Street called it Black Friday. He called it Tuesday. His name was Jay Gould, the most hated man in America. And this is his playbook. Jason Gould was born in 1836 in a farming town so small it barely had a name. Roxbury, New York. No inheritance, no connections, just a mind for numbers and absolutely zero conscience. By 17, he was working as a bookkeeper for a tannery in rural Pennsylvania. The owner was a man named Zadok Pratt, experienced, wealthy, and completely unaware that his new employee was cataloging every vulnerability in his business. Within 2 years, Gould had manipulated Pratt into debt and taken the tannery for pennies, not by buying it, by creating leverage. This was Gould's first playbook move. Find someone who doesn't understand what they have, identify what they're blind to, and use that blind spot against them. He was 20 years old. He moved to New York in the early 1860s and walked into the most savage financial arena in human history. The Gilded Age. No SEC, no insider trading laws, no disclosure requirements. If you could get away with it, it was legal. And Gould had a particular genius for finding the gap between what was legal and what was right. In 1867, Gould found his first whale, the Erie Railroad, a valuable rail line running from New York to the Great Lakes. The problem was Cornelius Vanderbilt, literally the richest man in America, wanted it too. Vanderbilt started aggressively buying Erie stock to take control. Gould, who already held a significant stake, did something so audacious it became legendary. He printed more stock, literally. He and his partner James Fisk, a flamboyant showman turned financier, flooded the market with newly issued Erie shares. Every time Vanderbilt bought more, they printed more, diluting his ownership. Vanderbilt poured $7 million into Erie stock. Gould and Fisk kept printing shares and pocketing the cash. When Vanderbilt finally realized he'd been played, he got a friendly judge to issue arrest warrants. Gould and Fisk fled to New Jersey, rowing across the Hudson River at midnight with satchels full of cash and stock certificates. From their Jersey City hotel, guarded by hired thugs, they continued running the Erie Railroad while the entire New York legislature scrambled to respond. Vanderbilt eventually paid Gould $1 million just to go away. He bought back the watered stock at a discount, and Gould walked away with a fortune. He was 31. He had just outmaneuvered the richest man on the continent. Gould never invested blindly. Before the Erie War, he spent months studying Vanderbilt's legal vulnerabilities, the Erie's corporate charter, and the political landscape. He understood the rules better than the people who wrote them. Every major Gould operation followed the same pattern. Gather intelligence first, identify the structural weakness second, exploit it before anyone notices third. He didn't have the most capital. He didn't have the most allies. He had the most information. And in any competitive arena, whether it's Wall Street in 1869 or Silicon Valley today, information asymmetry is the single most powerful edge that exists. Rockefeller understood oil better than anyone. Carnegie understood steel. Vanderbilt understood transportation. Gould understood what other people didn't know, and he understood it before they did. The Erie War was the warm-up. Gould's masterpiece was the Gold Corner of 1869, and it's one of the boldest financial schemes in American history. At the time, the U.S. government held about $100 million in gold reserves. The Treasury regularly sold gold from these reserves to keep the price stable. Gould realized something. If he could somehow know in advance when the government would sell gold, and when it wouldn't, he could corner the entire market. So he bribed President Ulysses S. Grant's brother-in-law, a man named Abel Corbin, with $500,000 in bonds. Corbin's job was simple, but devastating. Report everything Grant said about gold policy directly back to Gould. Armed with inside information from the president's own family, Gould started buying gold aggressively. The price shot from $132 to $163 per ounce in just 3 weeks. He was making $50,000 per single point of price movement. On September 24, 1869, Black Friday, gold hit $162. Gould was hours away from cornering the entire United States gold supply. Then President Grant discovered the scheme. He ordered the Treasury to release $4 million in gold onto the market immediately. The price collapsed from 162 to 133s in 15 minutes. Thousands of investors were wiped out. Businesses failed overnight. Wall Street shut down entirely. But Gould, using his information edge one final time, had begun selling before the crash hit. He walked away with a profit while the financial world burned around him. After the gold corner, Gould pivoted hard. He stopped trying to corner commodities and started buying the things nobody could choose not to use. He seized control of the Union Pacific Railroad, then the Missouri Pacific, the Denver and Rio Grande, the St. Louis Southwestern. By 1881, Jay Gould controlled 15% of every mile of railroad in the United States, over 16,000 miles of track. But he didn't stop at railroads. He took over Western Union, the telecommunications backbone of America. If you sent a telegram anywhere in the country in 1880, it traveled on Gould's wires. He also controlled the Manhattan Elevated Railroad, moving hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers daily. His logic was brutal and elegant. Commodities fluctuate. Infrastructure compounds. People can choose not to buy gold. They cannot choose not to ship goods. They cannot choose not to communicate. When you own what everyone must use, you don't need to be the best. You just need to be the only option. Gould's final empire wasn't a collection of companies. It was an integrated machine. His railroads shipped goods across the country. His telegraph lines carried information about those shipments and every other piece of news that moved markets. His elevated railroads moved people through the largest city in America. Each asset reinforced the others. When Gould testified before a Senate committee in 1883, he boasted that Western Union's exclusive contracts made it, quote, perfectly impracticable for any competitor to challenge them. He wasn't wrong, and Congress realized with growing horror that one man had effectively privatized America's entire communication network. This is the playbook at its most dangerous. When every asset you own makes every other asset more valuable, you don't need to outperform competitors individually. The system outperforms them collectively. The whole is not just greater than the parts. It's a different category of power entirely. Rockefeller built a monopoly on oil. Carnegie built one on steel. Gould built something more fundamental, a monopoly on the flow of information itself. Jay Gould died in 1892 at 56 years old. His estate was worth $72 million, roughly $2 billion in today's money. Rockefeller called him brilliant. Vanderbilt called him dangerous. Mark Twain called him the Mephistopheles of Wall Street, the devil's own agent. He never built a university like Rockefeller. He never built libraries like Carnegie. He built something harder to see and harder to stop, systems of control that outlasted him. His son George inherited the empire. His daughter Helen became one of America's greatest philanthropists, giving away the fortune her father had extracted from the system. This is Empire Playbook.